Hello everyone, welcome to Just Academy. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you the basics of grooming in Houdini. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to use a test geometry, which is a template head. So we have a head geometry available for us now. I'm going to rename this to Geo. So we are going to test our groom on this geometry. So let's have a look at our geometries first. So I'm going to turn off the UV texture by clicking this button. So yeah, we have a fairly low amount of geometry in our head. So when it comes to grooming in Houdini, we need to have a good amount of polygons in our geometry to work with, like painting maps to control the groom. So in XGen or other software, you can use the textures, like you can directly paint the textures on top of the geometry. But in Houdini, we don't have any other options. We have only have to paint on top of the points, or in Maya's term it's vertices. So when we have a good number of points, you have a good resolution of maps. So I'm going to add a subdivide to get some resolution on our mesh. I think we can go for 2. If you have a good machine, you can go up to 3 or 4. So for the sake of tutorial, I'm going to keep this 2. And yeah, so we have a good amount of polygon in our geometry at this moment, but we have some we have some holes opened in our geometry. So so we need to close this because it's going to have give problem when we generate VDBs. So we definitely need to have a VDB to get our guides collide with our geometry. So let's generate the VDB first. VDB from polygons. If I use the geometry, so yeah, let's decrease the value to get some more quality. So you can see our VDBs are not working fine because we have the open holes in our geometry. So we need to first close that. So in order to close that, I'm going to use a polyfill node. Okay, so let's see how it closed. We have some jagged polygons, so we need to fix that. Maybe we can go for a quadrilateral fan. Yeah, so I think this worked fine. So if I go to VDB from polygon now, so yeah, it works fine. So let's increase the VDB resolution a bit. So maybe we can go for 0.001. So yeah, so you need to keep an eye on this value. So if you reduce this too much, so it is gonna take a lot of time for computation. So in this case, I think this is fairly enough at this moment. So yeah, this is our geometry for creating the groom, and this is for VDB. So I'm going to rename this. Okay, so I'm going to color this. Cool. So now we have our geometry setup is ready. So now I'm going to show you how we can create guides and hair on top of our geometry. So we have two different options to create our hair and fur. So the first method is to use the shelf tools. So the hair utils, so you need to go to hair utils and you need to select this add fur button. So when you select this, click this, and you need to select your geometry and press enter. So it cooks for us. Yeah, once the process is done, you can see we have 3 new nodes. So we have the guide groom and guide deform and hair generate. So we are not interested to explain about the guide deform at this moment because it is just a node responsible for transfer your guides or hair from the static geo to animated geo or post geo. So I'll talk about this in a later tutorial. So I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to have the guide group and the hair chain. So let's go and have a look at our geo node. So as you can see here, we don't have anything changed in our geo node. Okay, let's view from here so that our geometry will be visible once we in the object mode. So yeah, so there's no change here, and let's go and see what is there in the guide room. So in the guide room you can see, so there are several inputs and there are several outputs. So basically these inputs are like, so we have connected our geometries like this here. So this directly import our geometry and it gives us like this. So we have the skin and skin VDB. So in skin VDB it automatically generates a VDB, so we don't want that. I'll show you how to connect our own VDB. So other than that, so we don't have anything much in the guide room as well. So let's go and have a look at hair generate. So as you can see here, even the hair generate also doesn't have that much. So these are pretty much the inputs and the output. So let's delete this, and I'm going to show you how manually we can set this the second way. So I'm going to just create a guide room. So yeah, this is our guide room. I'm just going to connect it like this, so you can see we have our guides are visible now. So this is working fine. But when I dive into this, so you can see we have our guides and skin VDB and everything. But if I try to view it, so there's no option to directly view it. So we need to create a null and we need to connect it. And let's view from here. I'm going to turn off this show all geometries, but we need to keep this in hide other objects so that we can see only whatever visible in this node itself. So we have our guides, and let's connect the skin, and yeah, we can see we have our skin is coming from this stream. So let's go and see our skin VDB. So yeah, this skin VDB is not gonna help us, so we need to connect our own VDB that we have created in our geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our guide room, and in the rest skin VDB we need to select this to swap geometry, and we need to click this button and we need to select our VDB. So here it is. So you can directly select this. Usually I use the export relative path so that it will give you a procedural kind of a location for whatever that input that gives here. So yeah, we have connected our VDB. Let's go and see. So now you can see we have our VDB that we have created in our geometry. So yeah, that's how it works. So I just don't want this connection to be, so we can keep this like this. But let's say if we are working on a complex groom, like maybe we are working for a quadruped, so maybe we need to create different grooms for head, legs, tail and body, so that we need to have different geometries, like we can from the whole geometry we can cut down the head separately, and we can cut down the body separately, and we can directly work on top of that. So when we have multiple inputs, multiple geometries to work with, so this is not going to work. So this is directly take one output and it connects here. So let's say if you have another guide room, and if you want to connect a different geometry out to this guide room, so it doesn't work. So we are going to delete this. I'm going to show you how we can use our own geometry as we need. So we have our out skin here. Let's say if you have multiple geometries, so you need to prepare your geometries and you need to connect multiple outputs so that you can select easily. So let's select our guide room, and here the rest skin source, let's see if I connect this, so it disappears, so it changes, it grayed out. So when I disconnect this, you can see we now we are able to connect our soft geometry. So the same way I connected our VDB, I'm going to select this and we can connect it like this. So if you have a huge amount of data or nodes in your node graph, so it will be a bit tough to select your the node that you want. So by that time you can just dive into your node and select the node that you want to connect and press Ctrl C so that you can copy it and you can paste it here. Yeah, now it works, you can see. So our guides are now visible, and if I dive into this and let's connect our guides, oh sorry, yeah, let's connect our skin to see whether it's working or not. Yeah, it works. So yeah, and one more thing, so after I connected this to a soft path, I usually select it once again and select export relative path and press accept. So yeah, we have our guides, and now we need to create our hairgen. So it's pretty straightforward. Select your hair generate node and you can just connect it like this, so it will still give you the hair, but I usually don't use this way because I'm just going to select the hairgen, and you can directly you just drag this node and take this like this, and you can drop here, so it will still do the same. So you don't have to, if you don't want this to be appear on your node graph, so you can just keep this like this. But if you are working on a complex grooming, we have so many hairgen and guide grooms, it is better to keep this like this because you can clearly see what is going on. So it is up to you. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to keep this as it is. And yeah, so let's dive into the hairgen and see what it's giving for us. So let's create a null to see what it gives. So I'm going to connect the null and see it. So you can see here it just gives you the hair. So it just takes your guide groom and it creates hair that actually interpolates with your guides. Let's say if I create a noise here, okay, frizz, okay, so I just connected it here. I'll let you know in a minute how to use these things. So yeah, I just created a noise on top of our guides. So now you can see here our hairs are just following our guides. So yeah, let's delete it and let's explain about our hair. So yeah, you can see we have our hair strands created for us, and let's go and see our skin. So yeah, even though we haven't connected our skin, it directly picked the skin geometry from this guide groom node. So once you connected the guide groom, it directly takes your input from here. So we have the skin, and let's see how our skin VDB is looking. So you can see here, so it generates its own VDB, so we don't want that. So we need to connect our own skin VDB. So the same way, I just going to copy this path. Maybe we can copy the parameter and we can paste it here. So now we have connected our skin VDB, and let's dive into this. And now yeah, you can see we have our skin VDB is working fine. So yeah, we have our setup is pretty much ready. So this is like the initial point or a template to start with. So now I'm going to talk about creating or painting maps to control our guides or hairs. So I'm going to keep the guide groom, and let's increase the density. So before that, let's talk about the guide groom node. So this is our guide groom. So you can see we have our density and we have our scatter seed. The scatter seed helps us a different distribution every time when you change this. So we have the relax iteration, so it helps you to get some evenly distributed guides, and I'll usually keep this a good amount of number here. So, and we have the segments, so you can just increase or decrease as you want. So if you're working for a short hair, maybe you can keep this for on 8 or 7 or something like that. If you're working on a long hair, maybe you need to go for 30, 50, sometimes 100 according to the quality that you want. So let's keep this 8 at this moment, and we have the length here. And finally we have our display subdivision curve. So this is very important, so I usually turn this off. So when you're working on a heavy groom, so it definitely going to take a lot of resource from your computer. So when you keep this turned off, so you can work easily, so it won't take that much resource from your computer, so everything works fast. So we have our display color. Let's select and see how it changed. So yeah, maybe we can keep this color, and yeah, that's pretty much it for guide groom. And let's increase the density and decrease the length to maybe 4. Okay, let's keep 0.05. Yeah, I think this is fine. Maybe we can increase the density even further to explain what is going on when we paint attributes. So yeah, we have a really good amount of guides in our guide room. So I'm going to create maps. So usually when I create maps, so I usually paint it in the geo node. So I usually don't want to confuse. So when it comes to geometry preparation or painting maps, I would usually paint in the geometry node itself, because this is our main input for the guide room and hairgen as well. Let's say if I want to paint a density map and I want to connect that density map to guide room and hairgen at the same time. So if you create your paint maps here, so you can connect it easily. So if you create your maps here, so sometimes it makes problem. Let's if you want to get the attributes to a different guide room node, so you don't have any other options to get the maps from this guide room to this guide room. So that I usually create the maps here, and I will use the attributes as I want. So I'm going to dive into this, and yeah, let's create the attribute paint. So I'm going to, so when it comes to attribute paint, so we have so many tutorials available on the YouTube. So I would strongly recommend to watch the attribute paint tutorials. And so I'm not going to explain too much about the attribute paints here, but yeah, let's see. So in attribute paints, the main things that we need to concern is the attributes that we are creating here. So you need to keep an eye, you have to keep in mind that you can create your attributes here, and you need to select your attributes to paint from this list. So we shouldn't confuse with that. So yeah, we have the mask attribute, so I'm going to delete it and I'm going to create a density attribute here. So now you can see we have blue color appears here. So once you can see we have our density attribute selected. Now let's say I want to create one more attribute which is a length attribute. So yeah, now you can see length is selected here. So whatever that is selected here will be activated for paint here. So if you want to paint length, you need to select the length here, but let's say I'm going to paint the density here. So wherever you see blue, it's actually 0. Wherever you see red, it's 1, and these colors are in between. So if you are confused too much, you can just right click, and you can see once you created your attributes, so it will be available here, and you can just click this icon and it will bring you this window, and you can change the colors as you want. So if you want, you can change this to grayscale, and we have other options here as well. So we have the black body and twilight and so many things. If you want, you can customize this, but in this case I'm just going to keep this grayscale. Yeah, close this. Yeah, now it works fine. So I'm going to paint white. So if you want to paint white, you need to keep this value 1. So if you want to paint 0.5, you need to change the value and paint like this. Okay, so I'm going to reset all changes and let's enable the symmetry. Yeah, so let's paint here. So now you can see now the symmetry is activated. So I'm going to change the value to 1 and I'm going to paint the value here. Let's reset all changes and paint it now. Yeah, let's paint something like this. And now I'm going to go to the guide room and I'm going to connect the map that I have created. Since we are connected our outskin to our guide room, so this attribute will be available for us here. So you can see here we have in the density parameter, you can select your skin attribute and you can directly select the density here. You can see here our density is working just fine. So wherever you painted white, so now it affects here. So yeah, you can just click this button and you can see whatever maps that we have created will be available in the list. If you have multiple maps, so all the attributes will be available here, so you can select as you want. So yeah, we have our density attributes are working fine. If you want, you can even go beyond 1. So I'll just going to paint some areas with value 2. So yeah, I painted here too. So this is where our color schemes are working. So I'm going to right click and change the color to like maybe infrared. Yeah, you can see here. So we have painted with the value 2 here, but we are not able to see it. So in order to see it, you need to change the max to 2, so now it remap our attributes to 0 to 2. So maybe if you paint with 3, you need to change this to 3 so that you can clearly see it. So now you can see here, so this is this value. So wherever you can see green, it's actually 1. So wherever you see blue, it's actually 0. So yeah, let's see how it works. Now you can see, so it is a bit hard to see here, but so wherever we paint 2, we have some extra hairs. Let's go for some more value. So maybe we can go for 10. You can clearly see it now. So we have many guides on the area that we painted 10. So yeah, I'm going to just reset this, reset all changes, and maybe we can just undo this. Yeah, so I'm going to change this back to 1. Yeah, and I'm going to paint a length map now, and let's see how our length map works. So I'm going to paint 1 here, and I'm going to paint a 0.46 here, and finally a 0.1. Okay, let's go to our guide room and see. So we haven't connected our length attributes yet, so let's select our skin attribute from here, and you can see the default value, the default attribute name is length scale, but we have created length, so we need to connect it here. Cool. Yeah, you can see here it directly works here. So yeah, but if I say no override, we have so much of hair here. So let's go and select our attribute paint, and let's pin this here and come out. Okay, so it doesn't work. Anyways, so you can just compare this here. So we have our density map. Yeah, we have let's paint some more area with density 1 to see it. So we have a good amount of white here. So but once I connected our length, oops, so it disappears, because as you can see here in the length, these are just 0. So when you have 0 length, you don't have any guides. So yeah, so that is it for the painting attributes. So this is how I usually paint the maps, and I'll work. So I'm just going to disconnect all the maps that I've created, and I'm going to explain about the creating guides and creating the actual groom and hair. So yeah, let's dive into the guide groom, and let's create a guide groom node inside a guide groom. So you can see here, so we have two different guide grooms. One is at the object level, so this is the whole container for creating our guide grooms, and inside we have our dedicated guide groom node that is responsible for creating the actual guides. So you can create as many guide groom as you want, and let's connect it here. So you can see when I hover my mouse on top of this, you can see this is for guides, and this is for skin, and this is for skin VDB. So you can just connect this manually like this, and but when you drag and drop your node like this, so when you go closer to this lines, it will automatically connect your node like this. Yeah, so this is cool. So once you're connected here, so it directly take your guides from your guide groom node here. So whatever the value that keeps here, so it will take. So let's say I'm going to reduce this. So you can just dive into this, and let's make this to show all objects. So now you can see we have our guide groom. So as I'm just going to pin this, and let's change this here. Now it will affect the way you want. Everything is procedural until this point, but once I change something here, I'm just going to select the sculpt node, and I'm going to change this. So once you change this, if you change your guides density or whatever, so it won't affect anymore. So once you make changes, from that point every changes will be baked down into this guide groom node. So we always need to keep that in mind. So yeah, and that's applied for all the settings. Let's say if you want to increase the segments or increase or decrease the length, so nothing works. So if you want, you can, some settings will work. If you want, you can change the guides colors. So yeah, this will work, but these things will not work. So you can just dive into this, and usually, so I won't create my grooms like this. So the way I create my grooms is guides is, so I usually start with 0, and I'll plant guides manually one by one, and I'll sculpt on the way. So I'll explain you how to do that. So usually I'm going to, maybe we can clear this so that it will go to the initial stage. Now if you change this, it will work. You can see here. So I'm going to keep this value to 0 and dive into this. So now we don't have any guides here. So now I'm going to just go to the plant here. So we have very good tools and options available for us to create our guide. So I'll explain in a minute. So first we have the plant. So when I plant, so it doesn't work for one by one. So I'm going to undo this, and so you need to change this to single so that you can paint one guide at a time. So this is really helpful. So yeah, you can see here the default length is 0.01 when you have 0 density in the guide groom. So this guide groom will take the liberty to control your length and segment controls. So I'm going to just increase the default length, but before that I just created few guides, and once you created the guides, if you want to change the default length, so it doesn't work, because once you make the change, so once you create something here, so it will be baked down. So these values need to be initialized, defined before you create something in this node. So let's clear everything, and if I click now it works. So you can see we have our default length, and our segments are working fine. So I'm just going to keep this to default, and I'm going to increase this to 0.03. And now if I click this, you can see we have the length that we want. And so if you are not happy with the length, if you want to change, you need to undo and go for 0.35. And maybe for the segments you can keep 10. Yeah, now you can see here it works fine. So okay, this value will work fine, so I'm going to use this value. So we have created one guide, and let's go to sculpt. So once you plant a guide, so the sculpt tool is our friend to sculpt our hair. So this is really helpful for shape our hair that we want as we want. So the length is not gonna work, so we need to change the length. So in the sculpt node itself, you have the constraint length option. So you can, once it's not selected, so once it's not checked, so you can actually change the length of the curve guides that you want. And you can see here, so as I change the length, the segments are, become very uneven, but we don't want that. So I'm just going to undo everything, and you need to keep this maintain even length segments on, so that even if you change the length, it doesn't give you some uneven segments. So yeah, so this is my settings. I usually turn this off this way, so I'm going to just create some guides like this, and you have other options also to create your guides. I'm going to just clear this, so you can draw your guide curves. So you just have to select this draw here, and you need to you actually need to go to the angle that you want, and you need to just click and drag like this, so that it creates the guide like this as you want. So but the angle that you're viewing is very important, so according to the normal, so it creates the geometry. So yeah, sorry, it creates the guides. So I'm going to just, I usually stop with draw, and yeah, maybe we can go with segments of 12. Yeah, okay, I think this will work. So once I created a guide using draw, I'll go to sculpt, and I'll sculpt like this. Yeah, okay, so let's plant some more guides. So you need to make sure you turn on this interpolate guides, so that it will interpolate between your neighbor guides. So yeah, and okay, so I'm going to draw another guide here, okay, with so now we have multiple guides, but if you want to control one guide at a time, so you can just click this arrow and select the guide that you want, and you can just play like this. So let's turn on the constraint length, so that you can keep your length consistently. Maybe we can reduce the length of it. Yeah, oops. So now I'm going to plant other guides, but make sure you deselect it from here. So yeah, I'm going to plant another guides here, and okay, so we can draw guides. Oh, okay, so you can move the guides if you want, like this. Yeah, so I'm going to draw some more guides like this, like this. Yeah, and Now you can see I have some uh, like block out of hairs here. So now I'm using the plant with the scatter. So now you can just use the scatter to populate some guides in between, so it interpolates with our neighbor hairs. So if you want, you can increase the density as you want, so that you can paint some good amount of guides here. So as you can see here, some hairs are going in a different directions, so we can fix that easily. Just select this, make sure you're not okay constraint, not the constraints. So yeah, select it and just paint like this. Otherwise, maybe we can select this and yeah, oops. Let's paint some more guides here. Single. Okay, so I'm going to create another guide here. Okay, maybe we can use the draw. Like this. Like this. Some small guides here. Go to draw. Oh, sorry, sculpt. So now let's focus on this area. And I'm going to use the sculpt, and let's reduce the let's turn off this constraint length. Okay, so as you can see here, this is penetrating, interpenetrating with our skin. So in this case, if I change here, so it goes wrong. So we don't want that. So for this case, I'm just going to turn off the collide with skin for some times, and I'll just get this out, or if you want you can use the de-intersect. Okay, de-intersect, you can keep this turned on and click this, so it will get your guides out from the skin for some amount, and after that sculpt this and turn off the skin with collide with skin, and just get this out like this, and now you can turn off the collide with skin. Okay, let's reduce the length of it. So in these areas we don't want that much of length. Okay, it's colliding. So let's try first with the de-intersect. Okay, cool. So now we need to go for sculpt. Maybe we can reduce some of this length as well. Maybe we can reduce some of the strength, so let's keep the tweaks subtle. Okay, so we're now gonna fine-tune this for the sake of this tutorial. So I'm going to use the cut to reduce its length a bit, as you can see here. Okay, we have some guides are going through our skin, so we don't want that. So let's go and select de-intersect and select those guides that are intersecting with our geometry. Okay, okay, okay. Finally we have some guides to work with. So this is not so great, but for the sake of this tutorial I think this will work fine to explain everything. So we have our guides here, and I'm going to just see how it looks when I turn on the hair gen. So yeah, it's just following. We don't have any material assigned to our hair gen, so I'm going to create a material using the matte network and create a hair shader. Yeah, we have our hair shader here. Control C and paste it in the material on hair gen node. Now you can see we have our hairs have the material. So we have the guy groom and the hair gen, both are has the same color, so we don't want that. Let's change its color to something like blue or something. No, maybe we can go for this color. Yeah, so now you can see everything is working fine, but we need to work on our hair gen, so we don't have any density map to control. So let's paint a density map to control. So yeah, so we could have paint this before we create the guides. So that's how we usually work, but for the sake of explaining everything better, so I just created the guides first. So now let's focus on creating the guides. Let's reset all changes and paint our proper density map. So I'm just going to paint a density map, so I'm not gonna explain too much on creating like fine-tuning and everything. So yeah, I'll just explain the process. So let's make our guide small. And one important thing is, when you work on one particular context, like if you're working on geo, make sure you turned off both of these things. So if you keep everything on, so it might take a lot of your resources. So yeah, since we have some good amount of geometry, it actually slow down the process. So but let's go for it. So yeah, so I usually reduce the size of my brush, and I'll create the outline, something like this, and I'll paint in betweens. Okay, so we have our density map here, and let's now enable the visibility of our hairgen, and let's connect our density here. So it's going to be skin and density. So let's increase the density value. So now it becomes the multiplier. So you can see here, so you can see these areas are still doesn't have any hair because we don't have that much of guides here. So okay, we have the guides, but it doesn't. Let's see how things work when we change this. Okay, maybe let's put some guides here. And see if it works. It still doesn't work. Let's see what's going wrong. Okay. Maybe sometimes extrude and blend, and okay, so it was just a bug. Yeah, now it works on its own, so I haven't changed anything. It doesn't work for some weird reason. So yeah, so now you can see here, so we have some problems here. So you can see definitely this area doesn't work because the guides are interpolating with our the hairs are interpolating with our guides. We don't want that, so this particular area of hairs to be interpolated with uh, this set of guides, and this particular hair should be interpolated with this guides. So in order to make that, we need to create some parting. So let's create some partition, guide partition node, and let's connect it like this. And once you connect it here, we need to click this draw parting line, so it will create and connect this draw curve node automatically for us. So let's select the draw curve, go to projection and show guide geometry. You need to turn this off so that you can see our geometry. So we have our draw curve, so you can just paint on top of our geometry, but before that let's turn off the visibility of this. Okay, so let's paint let's create our curves. So let's create some uneven curve like this. Okay, so I think this will work. Yeah, let's go and see if it works. Cool, it's just working fine. This is what I wanted. Okay, so now I'm going to just play with some length, so you can see here. So this is not gonna work, so let's dive into this and let's create some more guides. Okay, let's plant the guide, the single guide, and I'm going to first I'm going to reduce the length of it. So yeah, adjust length. So you have the options here, add or subtract. I'm going to just add or subtract, and the value is going to be, yeah, like this. So once you click your left mouse button, it will increase the length, but we don't want that. Once you click middle mouse and work like this, it will reduce the length of your guides. So this is what we want. So I'm going to reduce some of the guides length here. Maybe here also. Okay, let's plant some guides in between. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I think this is better, but we need to reduce even further here, and maybe we need to paint some more density. So yeah, I'm going to Oops, sorry. So we need to keep this turned on so that we can see our attributes. So okay, let's see. Oh, again, this is very weird. Maybe we need to restart it. So I'm going to save and restart Houdini for this. Okay, so even I tried restarting Houdini, but it doesn't affect. So it doesn't work. So but I made some changes that works. So the actual problem was, so you need to create the guide skin lookup attribute. Sometimes most of the times when you have some weird issues going on with your guides or grooms, you need to add this guide skin attribute lookup so that it will add all the necessary attributes from your skin. So it will fix most of the time. So once you added this here like this, so you need to connect your guides here and you need to connect your skin. So yeah, it will fix everything. So yeah, now it works fine. And yeah, let's go to the guides, and maybe we need to play with some more length and directions. I'm so happy that we have so much of issues going on when we create the hair, so that I can explain everything, so that you can get some more knowledge into how to fix some of the things. So yeah, let's first use the sculpt tool. Maybe we can go for brush, and we can just rotate the guides, I mean orient the guides the way you want, so it doesn't affect the shape of our guides. It's just going to orient. Okay, so I'm just going to orient these guides to something like this. Yep. And maybe let's go. Okay, so we have to do the same this area as well. Okay, so let's go and sculpt a little bit here, and let's reduce the density, I mean length, even further. Okay, so oops. Okay, let's select the guides. Okay, so the next thing is, so I'm happy with the way the guides are looking. Maybe we can change this blending method. So I think this is the right time to talk about this settings. So now you can see here we have So we have two different methods. One is linear bend and the other one is extrude and blend. So when you change this, you have a different kind of result. So it will extrude first and then blend with our guides. So it first extrude with our the normal of the geometry, and then it will interpolate with our guides. So sometimes it gives you the desired look that you want. So yeah, it also creates some issues here. So once you do this, you need to change your guides accordingly. So sometimes you need to plant more guides, and yeah, maybe the guides, yeah, we have the hairs, but these are interpolates, interpenetrates with our skin, so that we need to add some more guides here, and we need to make sure it is not penetrating into our geometry. So yeah, we don't have that much of time for this tutorial. I'm going to just keep this in linear blend so that we have some good looking groom here, and we have some influence radius here. So you can play this like if you have some if you want your guides to follow your if you want your hairs to follow your guides in a different way, you can change this. So as you reduce this, so it will reduce the density as well. So it will populate the hairs only on the areas where your guides are. So you can see here. So yeah, let's say if you're working on some less guides, and if you don't have that much of hairs are going on here, so you need to crank up this value to a good amount. So for this case, I think this will fine. So maybe we can keep this like this. I think this will work. So we have a good volume of hair here. So okay, so let's increase the density even further. Okay, so let's turn off the guide groom now, and now let's work on the hair. So let's add the clump and other stuffs and create our final hair. So I'm going to first use the length. Okay, sorry, first let's create the clump. So we have the hair clump here. We need to connect our hairs in the first input and skin in the second. Let's connect our skin VDB on the third input. So as you can see here at this moment, it's creating some procedural clumps. So we need to play in the clump settings. So we have clump size. When you reduce this, so it affects. So yeah, we have some good amount of hair clumps that are going. But if you want your guides to affect your clump, so if you want your clump to be worked based on your guides, you need to connect this custom clump curves to the guides. So you need to keep in mind that this gives your hairs and this gives your guides that you created in your guide grooms. So let's see, let's create a null and connect it here. You can see, so this is our hair. So if I connect this, you can see this is our guides. So we shouldn't confuse with this. So I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to connect this to our guides so that you can see. So now we are just using our guides like this. So yeah, I think this will work fine. So if you now change anything in the guide room, so it will directly affect on your hair gen. So okay, let's keep this as it is. And yeah, so we have two different options. So if you want, you can connect these guides and you can go ahead with this. But if you want some procedural clumps, you shouldn't connect anything here. So it will create its own clump points. So it will work accordingly. So if you want, you can reduce the clump size. If you want to visualize, you can just create a color node and connect it here. And so make sure we are exporting this clump ID. So I'm just going to select this too. ramp from attributes and change this. Okay, I think this is a primitive, so clump ID. So it doesn't work. Why? Okay, so uh, we need to so we have selected ramp from attribute, so that's not how it works, so we need to change this to random from attributes. So now you can see here, we can see our clumps. So let's go to the hairgen and go to our material, and let's change the color of it so that we can visualize it a lot better. So I'm going to increase the brightness of this so that you can see now, you can clearly see what's going on. So yeah, let's dive into the hairgen and see it. So now you can see our hairgen, the hair clumps are working fine, and you can see the IDs of our hair clump. So okay, so if you wanna view it even clear, so you can just go here and you can just disconnect this material, or if you put any number from this, and now if you see, so it's just properly show your clumps. So yeah, but I don't want this at this moment. I'm going to delete this and keep our material visible. So we have our hair clumps and we have some clump settings here. So we have linear blend, so you can see if you want some tighter clumps, so you can use the linear blend. The extrude and blend is a different one, so it usually extrude from your normals of the skin geo, and it will blend according to your guides. So in this case I just want this to be linear blend, and you can see we have some options here. So let's say this is for if you're working with the guides. Let's connect this first, and if you want your clump to match your guides, you need to play this. So at this moment we haven't that much going here. Let's say if you want your clumped hairs to match your guides exactly, you need to play this here. So when you have this one, so it will extend the hair curves to match our guides. So if you don't want, so you can reduce this as the same way, so you can shorten if you want. So let's keep this as it is. We have the tightness, and yeah, we can keep the tightness as it is, but I'm going to just play with this. So I'm just going to delete this first. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to add some fractal clumps as well, but let's increase the clump size a little bit, maybe even further, 95. Yeah, I think this will work. And I'm going to increase the stray rate a little bit so that some hairs will not follow our clumps, and I'm going to increase the density as well. So maybe we can go some higher values. I think this will work, and I'm going to decrease the density. Okay, so it's in sorry, thickness. So yeah, I think this is fine. Maybe our guide partition is not working that well, so maybe we need to fix that. Maybe we can add a wrist position. Okay, that's not working. Maybe we can play with these settings. Okay, let's see if we connect our guides. Okay, if we connect our guides, it's working fine. So yeah, okay, I think we can use this. So instead of using a procedural, so we can, however, going to create some subclumps using the procedural way. So in order to create that, you need to go to fractal clump. So you can create a manually procedural manually subclumps, but that's a bit advanced, so I don't want to explain that in this tutorial. So when you increase the iteration, so you can see we have so much of subclumpings are going. So now we have 2 iterations, if you want 3 or even further that, but I will say don't go too much. So yeah, we can keep something between 2 to 2.5, and yeah, cool. So maybe we can create some frizz to add some noise on the guides. Let's view our frizz here, and let's connect our skin and skin VDB. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this here, and let's reduce the amplitude of the frizz and the frequency. Okay, let's view it from here now. So now you should have a lot of variations going on, and let's see. Yeah, I think we can go more so that you have so much of variations going on. And I don't want this small hairs to be used, the clumps. So I wanna paint a map, and I'm going to cut those down from the hair clump. So I'm going to just select this, and in the blend select this skin attribute, and there's the clump mask. You can just click this button, it will create an attribute paint node for us, and from this you can paint. So now you can see here we are not able to see it, so you need to make sure hide other objects so that you can see only this object. And I just want to paint the black here. Okay, okay, I haven't turned on the symmetry. So let's turn on the symmetry and paint some attributes. I'm just going to paint some attributes roughly, not too much, and I'm going to blend it using shift and left mouse button so you can smooth this. Okay, so let's view from here now. Now as you can see here, so it just affects these guys, so it doesn't affect these guys. And maybe we can add some attribute remap. And you can, instead of giving this we don't have anything going on here, so we want some amount of clumps going on here, so that I'm going to remap this. Oh, okay, we need to first connect our attributes here. The original is clump mask, the new name is also clump mask. Now if I change this, so this will affect. Okay, I'm just going to remove some of the clumps here as well. So let's save the scene. Sometimes it crashes. Yep, I think this will work, and I'm going to create one more clump for the short hairs. So I'm just going to connect this here, and I'm just going to create a new clump for this, sorry, clump mask for this. Let's say clump mask 2 and create it, and I'm going to flood this with black fill and flood, keep this one again, and okay, so let's select the volume and make sure we are in symmetry. I'm just going to even some more areas. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to reduce the clump size a lot so that we will have some small clumps, and let's change this to linear blend. And let's change the tightness a lot. I want these clumps to happen on very subtle. Maybe we can reduce some blend in the large clump also. Okay, the frizz is affecting our shape of the geometry too much, so let's create one more attribute for the frizz. So I'm going to just create a skin attribute for the frizz. Okay, maybe instead of using this, I can use a guide mask. So I'm just going to connect it here, and in the guide mask you can actually generate some mask based on the features of our hair guides. So I'm going to create a length mask, so I can select the guides according to the length of our guides. So now you can see here it selects only the lengthy guides, so it doesn't select shorter hairs. So we can use this. So let's rename this to frizz, and we need to connect the frizz attributes here. So we need to make sure to select guide attributes. So this is not a skin attribute, so we haven't created this attribute on top of our geometry, so we created on the guides. So we need to select guide attributes here, and in the drop down select the attributes that you want. And now if you change this, it just affect these guys. So yeah, let's see. Let's change the amplitude. Okay, I think this is fine. So if you change this to extrude and blend, so it will follow more of your noise, but when you say this to linear blend, so it doesn't follow too much of your frizz of your guides, so it still gives you some breakup. So this is cool. So yeah, I am also going to have some curling. Okay, so some curling on the middle part of the hair. So I'm going to add some more frequency. Maybe we can reduce some of the clumps here. So in the paint clump mask, you can just paint some values like 0.25 or something like that. Okay. Yeah, so we are happy with the result that we have here. Maybe we can change the guides a little bit. So okay, let's select these guys. Okay, so let's create some frizz and some breakups on hair. So let's have some length breakups. So instead of using, so you can increase the length of the hair or decrease it. So I'm just going to create some randomization in this. So okay, 0 point, okay, sorry, 1 and 0.2. So instead of so this is actually on set, so we don't want that. So we don't want to multiply with the hair length that we already have. So I'm just going to use the multiply. So now the values are changed. So now it is the scale factor. If I change this minimum to 0.9 and I want to increase this to 1.2 or something like this. So yeah, I think instead of use cut or extend, maybe we can scale this. We will have different results. Okay, so I think I like this. Okay, so I'm going to have some flyaway hairs. So I'm going to add some frizz. And in the guide process node itself, you have some options to control your the noise or anything that you have in the guide process. So I'm going to use the noise mask, and I'm going to increase the noise frequency maybe to like 500, and I'm going to increase or decrease the gain. Okay, so basically you need to keep the gain to 1, and we can change the bias to select how much of hair that we want to be affected. So yeah, I think this is fine, and maybe we can use the curve mask as well. So the curve mask is, I'm going to just turn this off and I'll show you the curve mask. So it will actually uses your the guide, so it will create mask along your guide, so through your guide. So you can see the root of your hairs are not selected, so as you change here, so it will affect only the tip of your hairs. So yeah, I'm just going to use both of these together. So yeah, let's turn off the visualize mask so that we can see only the hair. So yeah, maybe we can reduce the blend of it a bit. I think we can change the method to cut or extend. Yeah, I think this will work. Okay, so this is pretty much looking fine. So the core concept of this tutorial is learning the process of creating hair and fur in Houdini. So I'm not gonna explain too much about art directing it. So yeah, so here is the final output of this hair creation tutorial in Houdini. So I made so many changes, so yeah, I'll explain the changes that I made. So mostly I have played with the density map, so I just create some changes in the density. So you can see here the shape of the white area, so I reduced some of the areas here and I extended some areas here. So yeah, then, and I played a little bit on the guides, so I planned some more guides, so I increased the density so that we have some more uh, uh, guides to have on our clumps. So yeah, so that we can reduce some bald patches on the hair. So it's a back and forth process. So I usually made some changes like this and have some volumes, so get some volumes, and I'll jump back to the object context and enable the visibility of our hair gen, and I'll check here and turn this off, go into this and change here. Yeah, it's pretty much a back and forth process, and yeah, that's pretty much it on the guide groom. Yeah, you can see I have planned some more guides here. I avoid some interpenetrations. So yeah, and in the hair gen, basically I have reduced the thickness to 0.00030. So, and I have increased the density, and I played a little bit on the blending modes. So I changed between extrude and blend and linear blend. So both of these are giving different results. So I personally like this one. Yeah, but it gives some some bald patches, or maybe some of the clumps makes it looks our head geo. So maybe if you choose extrude and blend, you need to spend some time on the curves, the guides, to make this not happen. And yeah, I played with the clumps a little bit, so I actually, okay, so I changed the blend value and the clump size. So yeah, maybe if you want, you can increase some stray rate here. So yeah, so I made some frizz only affected on the long hairs. So yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much I have changed. Cool. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. I make this file available for everyone, so you can find the link of the file in the description. So I feel free to download and so explore the file, so whatever the changes that I made. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.